The Marketing Woman podcast. I'm your host, Anusha Kannan, and it's so good to have you here. Are you looking to move into marketing or want to learn marketing from scratch? We discuss all things marketing, analytics, business, personal branding, AI, and much more in a way any layman can understand. If you're new here, make sure to follow along and get on that email list by visiting anushakanan.com/email list. And this is the original intro, and I obviously could not do this on the final episode of the Marketing Woman podcast. Today, welcome to one of the most important conversations we've had on here. You've heard the word community thrown around constantly, right? Build a community, engage your community. But let's be real. What does that actually mean? Because half the time, what people call a community is just a group chat with zero depth or a LinkedIn post with comments from possibly 3 coworkers. So today we're getting into it with someone who's not just talking about community, he's actually building one. I sat down with Matthew, head of community at Exit5. If you don't know Exit5, are you living under a rock? It's one of my favorite B2B communities. They have thousands of active members and honestly like a very good engaged group of people. And in this episode, we talk about what makes a real community versus just an audience, why most communities turn into ghost towns, and how to stop that from happening. The mindset shift around monetization. Should communities be free or not? That's a question I had, and Matthew explained that. And how to scale your community without killing the magic that made it great. So if you've ever wondered why your Slack group is dead, or how to actually get people to talk in your Discord or whatever community channel you use, this episode's going to shift how you think. This one's a great listen, especially if you're building anything in public, trying to grow a brand, or looking for more ways to connect beyond just quote unquote content. So yeah, let's get into it. Hey, Matthew, welcome to the show. So good to have you here.
Hey, Anusha, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Before we jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? How did you end up in the world of community building?
For sure. So, my name is Matthew Carnevale. I'm currently the head of community at Exit5. If you don't know Exit5, we're the largest B2B marketing community in the world. Number one goal is to help people grow their careers in B2B marketing. In terms of how I got here, I wouldn't say it was a super linear path, but I actually started my career in sales. I was a BDR for a company called One Local. I was doing cold calling, like 75 to 100 cold calls a day. Absolutely hated it. It was a grind, but it was a great experience nonetheless. But within that same company, since I didn't love sales, I transitioned into a marketing role. And just through my career coming up in marketing, I always knew how important it was to pay attention to, marketers who were ahead of me and learn from them. So that's how I found Dave on LinkedIn. And then following Dave for a while, I decided to join his community, which at the time was a Patreon channel or subscription called DGMG. And then DGMG eventually evolved into Exit5. So I was a member for like 3 years. And then sometime at the end of 2023, they were hiring a part-time social media and community manager. And at the time, I was a B2B marketer, just like a general marketing manager. And I really just wanted any way to work with Exit5 that I could. So applied for the job in a creative way and ended up getting it. And then that transitioned into a full-time role. And, in my time at Exit5, have done a bit of everything, but ultimately landed on being the community leader.
That is so exciting. And I can totally relate to, you just want to be a part of Exit5 in some way or the other. So I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
I thought we could talk about community today. I usually like to start with the fundamentals. So people use the word community a lot, right? And I feel like there's a difference between having an audience and having a community. How do you kind of differentiate the both of them?
Yeah, so I think that I look at defining community in 2 ways. So there is community building, and then there is building a community. So when I look at, first, if I take a step back, how do I define community? So community is just a group of people with some kind of shared interest. So if I said to you, I want to grow the soccer community, you would think, okay, he wants to grow the amount of people who, like soccer, watch soccer, and play soccer, right? It's the people who have the shared interest around soccer. So in the B2B setting, that's just growing the amount of people who have some kind of shared interest toward the problem that you solve. But building a community typically means building some kind of defined, like gated area or membership. So a lot of times in B2B, that means like it could be a Slack channel, it could be a Facebook group, it could be some kind of membership towards something that the company is building. So that's how I define it and look at the two things. In terms of where audience building comes into play, I think audience building is just a specific part of community building. So I think audience and community building as a whole are related, but building a community is very different than community building and audience building.
Right. And I think a lot of brands think that just because they have like 1 million followers, they feel like they have a community, but that's not the case, is it?
No. And the reason is because to me, community is a place where people can interact with one another, right? So social media or followers, for example, is very bi-directional a lot of the time. Like, sure, people can interact, in the comments of your content, but generally speaking, it's people are interacting with your brand, right? So you're still doing a good job at building the community of people who are interested in your thing, but it's not a place where people can interact with one another. Therefore, if we're talking about having an actual community, that is not quite it.
Right. So let's say that someone wants to build a community. What's the turning point like? When does it go from being like a bunch of people in the same space to actually something real?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if there's an exact time. I think so in Exit 5's case, Dave turned Exit 5 from just or DGMG at the time, from just him talking about marketing into a community, because somebody had literally asked I want a way to connect with and speak with other people in your group or that are part of your following. So in some cases people will ask, but generally speaking, I think the turning point is do you have a legitimate reason other than we want to monetize this audience? Because I think that the way a lot of people are treating community now is as another step of the funnel, right? It's we got a lot of social media followers. Well, now we want to monetize them by putting them all in this group and charging them some kind of subscription fee to be a part of it. And I think that can work. I mean, obviously in Exit 5's case, it worked very well. I think Exit 5 though is unique. We're essentially a B2C company. So we're not like a lot of B2B companies. I think for a lot of B2B companies, there needs to be some kind of goal, and the goal isn't just monetizing or getting more customers. So for example, let's say you have a bunch of people that are following you on social media and you want a way to get them, or you're thinking about building community. Maybe you have an initiative as a marketing team of helping the product team get smarter around what features to build. That could be a great reason to start a community, because now you can get some of these people in the same group and you can get them talking about common industry problems and get ideas for how to build your product. And you don't need to monetize that community in any way or make it very salesy or marketing. You can strictly make it around people in the industry talking about common goals and issues. And that could be a great way to feed information and insights into your product team. So I think it's just a matter of you need internally to have the right reasons to start a community or the right goals. And if you're unsure what those could be, there's a really great model that I always recommend people Google. It's called the Spaces model. So if you look up on Google, Spaces model community or something in that order, it breaks down 6 really great goals or reasons to build a community. So I would recommend checking that out if you're thinking about it.
Yeah, I love that. And I imagine a lot of people think that they're building a community when in reality, it's they're just collecting people. You pointed out that there are certain use cases where you need to build a community, but have you seen patterns where you've seen people start a community and then it just go wrong for all the wrong reasons?
Yeah, I think that's the majority of time when people start communities, at least that's from what I've seen. And yeah, again, I think it's people are starting it for the wrong reasons. People view it as a way to almost nurture their audience. It's I have all these people who follow us or all these customers, what if I put them onto a Slack channel and get them talking to one another? And the more they get talking to one another, maybe they'll want to somehow buy our product more or refer us to other people. I don't know. They make some connection there. They think that because they start the community, that's going to lead to a bunch of new pipeline. And maybe it could happen. I just haven't seen it happen a lot. I think that when people join a community, if they sense that your end objective is to get you to purchase their product or become a customer, they really quickly get turned off. People don't join communities to get sold to or to watch your latest webinar or read your latest blog post. They join communities to get connected to other people, right? Why else would you want to be put in a room with 150 other people? It's because you actually want to be in the same room as those people, right? Yeah. So I think that's where people get it wrong, is they just do it for the wrong reasons. And, they almost use it as a picking ground for sales.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think we have a clear idea on how to actually build a community, what it actually is. But I think the problem here is, like, let's say that I want to start a community and I end up starting it. Starting is great. There's a lot of, dopamine there. We do a great job of it. But then how do we get people to stay engaged?
Yeah. So I think that, again, it comes down to the goals of your community. So I think it's really important to determine what those are. But blanket speaking, let's say you're confused in your goals or you don't even know where to start. I think a lot of the time, the way you get people to stay in your community is to give them some kind of value that they can't get anywhere else. And that kind of comes back to that point about connections I was talking about. I really do think a lot of the time, depending on the community, but a lot of the time people do join communities to connect with other individuals like them. So I think it's your job as the community facilitators or creators to make those connections happen and get people connected to one another. I don't think you need to boil the ocean with community. I think you really just need to achieve like one very specific thing, which is how do you connect the right people to one another? And yeah, if you're in a community and that happens, I think that's a really great reason to stay. In Exit 5's case, like, we may connect somebody to someone else who's hiring because we know that they're looking for a job. And then in that case, they just stay as a member of Exit 5 forever because they know that we've connected them and we give them value, and we're a brand that provides them value. So they want to stay with us forever. So I think it's just about creating those moments of connection.
Right. What about from a member's perspective? What actually makes a community feel like it's not dead? And yes, of course, there might be days when, the entire group is silent, but then there has to be something valuable so that they can show up. What do you think that is from a member's perspective?
Yeah, so I think from a member's perspective, there's different kinds of members. There are members who are going to be in there every day and be active in every single forum. But I think for the most part, it's like you want a member to feel like if they put something out there or give an ask to the community, that they're going to get something back. So for example, if I'm a member of a community, let's just say I'm a member of Exit 5, and one thing that really made me feel like it wasn't a dead community was if I asked somebody for feedback on my SEO strategy or feedback on my content strategy, I always got an answer from somebody who knew what they were talking about. So I think that's a big one. And I think whatever that ask is from the individual to the community, they need to feel like, if I'm going to put something out there and put energy in and ask into this community, I'm going to get something in return. And it's okay if it's proportional. Like I don't think people expect magic from a community, but I think they expect something.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things I really think about a lot is, like, let's say that I'm starting a community, that I've got people to join it, but then all of a sudden engagement is dropping. What is like the immediate thought process that I should have? Yeah.
So I think you have to look back and be like, why is engagement, like, what am I doing that's making engagement drop? A lot of the time what I see is like people are just trying to like stuff their content in the community, right? Like they're trying to do like pretty much glorified webinars inside the community, or they're just repurposing some blog posts for the community. But my immediate thought would be like, well, why would people engage in your community? Like, what is the reason? Right? And how's that different than what they could do like somewhere else? So, could they just go to LinkedIn and get the exact same thing? Could they go to YouTube and get the exact same thing? Could they go to your blog and get the exact same thing? If that's the reason, I don't think they have a good reason to log into your community and engage. I think you have to look at like, well, what reason am I giving them to engage? For example, if nobody's talking, if my community is really dead and like maybe I've been putting a lot of great content into there recently, maybe I'd think of like, well, instead of me trying to talk to them, how can I get other members talking to each other? Like maybe I can implement some kind of matchmaking program. Like in Slack, they have like that donut feature, which just matches random people with one another. Like how can I implement something like that. And maybe I don't expect people to be typing in there all day long, but how can I get them in the community even just once a month to like do a 30-minute call with another one of the members? I think that's a really great way to look at it, is like try and break the mold of what you think you need to do and try something different. And it's not about how can I do more to keep up engagement. It's like, how can I do that one thing a month that's going to really get people to just log in once?
Right. Do you have like one go-to strategy for what people should be doing more of?
No, because I think it really does depend on the community itself and what they're trying to achieve. I do think though, like from what I see in most communities, like some kind of member matchmaking is typically what lacks the most. It's getting people to talk to one another. And I think that's not easy to do per se. But I think that's where most people get it wrong, is like they think that because they started the community, they need to be the ones talking 24/7 or the loudest in the room. Whereas really, ideally, like maybe in the beginning that may be the case, but for the most part, ideally you have a back seat and you're just a facilitator of all your members talking to and interacting with one another.
Have you had any situation where you've like tried to get a bunch of people together and then talk to each other, and then there's another situation where it's like one-on-one matchmaking? Which one do you think works the best?
So you're asking whether group matchmaking or one-on-one is better?
One-on-one.
You know what? I think both can work well. I think what it comes down to in that case is like, what are the parameters for matching people with one another? So in the one-on-one, you need to have a really smart way to match people, right? I want to talk to somebody who either can help me with my problem or somebody like me, right? Maybe if I was in a community of other community builders, I would want to talk to a community builder that is like building a similar community to an Exit 5, right? I wouldn't want to talk to somebody who's building like a support community for DocuSign, right? We have barely any similarities with one another. So I think the parameters of matching are really important. I think the group matchmaking can work really well. It just, again, it really depends who you're matching with one another. The issue with group matchmaking sometimes is like, if you try and match up 7 people and only 2 or 3 show up, it just looks worse. Whereas one-on-one, I just feel like it can still happen, but an individual may feel a bit more indebted to that one single person. Whereas in a group, you can kind of just like slide in the background and not show up to things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears and talk about money, because some people swear that all communities should be free. Some people say that paid ones give you quality people. Where do you stand on that?
I think both can work. So I think that what it really comes down to is like the strategy and effort you put behind the community. There's some awesome communities that are free that people rave about all the time. Like, for example, in B2B marketing or B2B SaaS, this guy, Brendan Hufford, he runs a community called All In, which is a free community. Or at least the last time I checked, it was free. And a lot of people rave about that community and say it's an awesome Slack community. So he does a great example. I think he's just a great community facilitator. And then in Exit 5's case, we're paid, obviously. I think that charging for a community can never be a bad thing, whereas free can definitely be a bad thing. So I think when you charge for the community, it's the same way as like you charging for a gym membership. It's like when people pay for something, especially on a monthly basis, they're going to want to put some effort and energy into that thing. And if they don't, they know it's their fault, right? Whereas if something is free, it's like, yeah, I might join it, but if I never put effort again, it really doesn't matter to me.
Right.
There's no harm in me doing that to myself. And a lot of the time, like, I'll just blame the community. I'll say, their community had a lot of spam or self-promotion, or it wasn't that great, so I didn't keep up. Whereas if I pay for something, it's like, if I didn't keep up, it's kind of on me. I probably should have done that. So I just think like anything, if somebody pays for something, even if it's $1, they're just more indebted to that thing.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah. I think, let's say that someone started a community, they've figured everything out, they've even monetized it. But when it comes to the actual growing part, right, the scaling part, I'm sure that has its own set of challenges. Do you know anything like that? Have you seen anything like that?
I think that like community, like let's say you are, charging for the community or it's a free product. it's kind of just treated like any other product that you would sell, in my opinion. And in order to sell a product, I think like as a marketer, you need to have an audience of people that kind of care about what you're doing. And then you probably need some in between step of them caring about what you're doing and becoming a customer. Like that could be like your newsletter, or it could be, you know, some other thing that people are subscribed to. And then I think out of that, a portion of those people are maybe going to want to connect with others in their industry. So they might find value in paying for, you know, a community to do that. So I think that if you're thinking about growth for a community, like the challenge is typically going to be like you're like any product, you're expecting people to go from not knowing who you are to just joining in your community. I think it rarely works that way. Like with anything, I think you need to think about like, what are the stages of me getting somebody to maybe want to consider my community? So it's like, how can I, you know, build this audience and like get those people maybe into my newsletter or whatever that thing is, and then maybe get them to consider a subscription or even joining my community for free. So I think the challenge is like, because it's a community, you think that people are going to just like expect it to, or you think people are going to just want to join it or expect it to be valuable. But it's like any other product, is people need some time to consider something and will typically pull the trigger when it's the right time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, like if, let's say that a community sort of grows way too big than we ever intended it to grow, what happens? Like, is there like a tight knit group feeling initially and then that goes away? And then there are new people. How do you make them feel invited? How do you make them feel included?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, first of all, if your community gets too big and bigger than intended, that's a really good problem to have. You're in the top couple percentages, because most people, it's the opposite. They can't get enough people to join. And even if they get a bunch to join, it's typically a dead zone anyway. So, you know, in the event where you get this community and it starts off great and super tight knit, and then it's growing, I think that, and like that starts to die off and that feeling goes away. I think the problem could be a couple things. I think like you, the facilitator, are not doing a good enough job at fostering the culture of the community. Like, for example, at Exit 5, you know, our community has doubled since last year. Since when I joined, it's doubled and then some. But one of the ways that we've kept the culture is like, we still go through, someone from our team, whether it's me or my colleague Allison or someone else, goes through every single post individually. And, you know, we read them, respond to them. Maybe we tag other members that are a good fit to answer. If it's something that is like spam or self-promotion, we remove it out of the community and just delete it completely. So it's like we invest resources in keeping the culture of our community a certain way. So I think that's really important. And then in the other vein, I think naturally, like anything, when a group of people starts to grow, they do feel less connected, right? It's like if you're in a room of, you know, 50 people versus 500, like it's a lot easier to connect with the 50 as opposed to the 500. So in that case, it's up to the community to decide whether they want to break up some sub-communities within the community. So, for example, in Exit 5, like, you know, B2B marketing is a really broad topic, right? Like what, you know, so say you work in B2B marketing. Yeah. It's like so many different sub-sectors in that. So what we've done is we have sub-communities, which are like product marketing, content marketing, marketing ops, AI, agencies. You know, we have different sub-communities. So I think it's like, if the pie was 3,000 big, it's still going to be 3,000 big, but now there are some slices of the pie that people who have a vested interest in can just stay in that slice and only interact in that part of the community. So if your community starts to get too big, then it's time to consider sub-communities.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I think that's all I had. We've covered everything. We started from, you know, how do we start a community? How do we keep it alive? How do we engage people? How not to let it die? So if you had to start a community from scratch today, what's the very first thing that you would keep in mind or do?
Yeah, so I think the very first thing I would do is not try and start a community. I would look at, do I have an audience of people who care about what I do? And if I have an audience of people that care about what I do, then maybe I have a fighting chance of actually starting a community that people want to join. So that's the first thing I would actually do. I think an audience is a lot more important at least from a marketing perspective, if that is your goal with your community. So I would start there. And then let's say, okay, you have the audience and you know why you want to start the community. From there, it's like, picking what platform to start your community on. I think that it doesn't need to be overbaked. Just start the community somewhere where you think your customers will hang out and engage in. Mm-hmm. We started as a Patreon group, then a Facebook group, and then now we're a circle community. So you can change always. And then from there, once you have picked a platform, you have the audience, you have all the goals in place, then it's a matter of like, obviously starting to invite people into the community. But within the community, it's like, okay, like anything, when people join something, swipe their credit card or whatever it is, in the first minutes or hours of them doing that, they want to feel good about that thing, right? Or else quickly they're going to lose interest in it. Mm-hmm. So have a really great onboarding. Make sure that when people join your community, they understand the lay of the land, who's in the community, what they could do, what value they're going to get, how to use the tools. And then from there, I think it's a matter of like figuring out what your programming is. So it's like, what are you doing? It could be every month. It could be every 3 months, every year to keep these people engaged. Mm-hmm. For example, it could be just a matchmaking program that you do once a month. That could be the only thing really. And then just having spaces where people can ask each other questions. But I think once you figure out those things, you have a chance at having, pretty good community.
Yeah. This was seriously so good. I like this episode so much. I feel like this is one of those episodes where people can come back to, and then, it's like a checklist of things. Okay, I've done this. Let me go to the next one. Yeah. Where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. I think that's the best place, Matthew Carnevale. If you're a member of Exit 5, you can connect with me there. But LinkedIn's a great place.
Yeah, and for everyone listening, if you found this insightful or helpful, share it with someone who's building a community because Matthew's the best at it. So
I don't know about that. You. I'm decent.
No, you're great at it.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course, really appreciate it.
All right, that's a wrap on this one. I hope it gave you a whole new way of looking at communities, whether you're building one from scratch, trying to revive a silent group, or just curious why everyone keeps talking about it. And hey, if you've been here for a while, this podcast has been through quite the journey, 2.5 years almost. This episode actually marks the final guest conversation, an actual episode under the Marketing Woman podcast name. But wait, don't go anywhere. Just stay here. Don't unsubscribe or do anything like that. Don't make any rash decisions because something new is launching right here. You don't have to go anywhere. I don't want you guys to go anywhere newly. You can just stay right here. Same feed, same vibe, just a whole new format. I'll be sharing why this shift is happening, what's staying, what's evolving, and how this next chapter is going to be way more aligned with where I am at now. So stick around. Big things are on the way. And as always, thank you for being here. I wanted to make this on audio because this is how the podcast started. This is a very emotional moment for me because I always call the Marketing Woman podcast as my first baby, and she will always be my first baby. But yeah, very excited about what's coming next. Follow me on LinkedIn, follow the Marketing Woman podcast on LinkedIn, and very, very excited about this one. Thank you for always sticking around. Thank you for your support. Really appreciate it. Would not be able to go to this next chapter without your support and endless encouragement. So thank you so much. I am going to just sign off now as the Marketing Woman podcast. I'll see you on. Peace.